I started by asking Jared Kushner about the start of his new book, where he talks about his father and the fact that he was incarcerated. And I asked him what impact that had on a young Jared Kushner.
My father's an amazing person. He was a very successful businessman. He still is. And I made a mistake. There was a family feud, and he did something, maybe an overreaction, and he went to prison for a year. For me, it was a very hard experience. I thought my life had a plan. I knew it was set, but then in a minute, everything was shattered. And so I write in the book how I really had a turning point where I said I could be angry at the prosecutor, I could be angry at the people my father was fighting with, I could be angry at my father, but I didn't think that would be productive. And instead, I put all of my focus on trying to be productive for his company, for him, for my family. And I think that really changed my mentality in life, which is when something bad happens, I don't spend my time being angry about it. I spend my time focusing on how do you fix it and how do you move forward.
You say it was a bad mistake by your father. 2016, let me take you there now, if I can. You talked about the president being prepared to be president. You didn't, I mean, he was one of the few people that expected him to win in 2016. I think it's fair to say that. How central were you in the subsequent 4 years of the Trump administration?
Yeah, so in the campaign, it was really him and his kids, right? So anyone who had experience, who wanted to work on the campaign, for most part, was told if you work for Donald Trump, you'll never get a job in Washington again. So it was a very renegade campaign. I write a lot in the book about how we did things differently, whether it was building a social media platform and using Facebook. And Facebook wrote that it was the best advertising campaign ever conducted on Facebook, not just for politics, but for anything. And so we did a lot of very untraditional things. We did it well, and ultimately that won him the White House. And so when President
Did you expect it though?
I didn't. We were prepared in the campaign for goal line plus an inch, right? In the sense that we were thinking about how do we get there and do everything we can to make it possible. We didn't think it wasn't possible, but we weren't spending time thinking about what it would be like if he won. And then, on election night, there were different models. Again, everyone in the media predicted he would lose. We saw that it was going our way, and then we had to figure out what came next.
Okay, let's do a deep dive into the memoir, if we may. Let's start with the 3rd of November 2020. Was that election won by President Biden or President Trump?
So President Biden is the president right now, so there was a transfer of power. I think it was a very sloppy election. I think it's caused a lot of people in our country to look at how our elections are conducted. During COVID, they changed a lot of the rules, which gave a lot of people a lot of concerns with how our elections are conducted. But the hope is that in the next elections, which are coming up, we'll have much cleaner elections, and it'll give people a lot more confidence in terms of what the outcome is.
Yeah, but some still say it was stolen by the Democrats. What do you think?
I think they changed a lot of rules at the last minute, used COVID as a pretense to fight the election. And I think, again, even now you're seeing news that's coming out with the FBI, how they may have gotten involved politically again in 2020 to not allow certain news out. So I think there's a lot of things that happen that give people a lot of cause for concern.
So you think it was stolen?
What I think is that Joe Biden is the president right now, and I think he's been an absolutely awful president. I think we have, a war in Russia. We have out of control inflation happening.
I understand, but if I could just take you to the 3rd of November, do you think that it was stolen by the Democrats?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to play the game that the media is trying to do of putting people.
I mean, I'm from the UK. I don't know. Look, as an outsider, I'm just asking for clarification from you. You were right there. You were at the president's side throughout those 4 years. Do you think, having been by his side, that looking at what happened on the election night, it was stolen by the Democrats?
Yeah, so again, I'm not going to play the game that the media is trying to play. I've made my position very clear. I think it was a very sloppy election in terms of how it was conducted. And I think that Joe Biden's the president. I think that's been a disaster for our country and for the world.
Okay, let me just quote a couple of things to you. 7 in 10 people say Biden was legitimately elected, according to the Washington Post. Trump's own Attorney General, Bill Barr, said, "We have not seen fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election." The Associated Press saying there were fewer than 500 cases of voter fraud. So why are they all wrong?
I'm not saying they're wrong or right, but what I will say, again, if you go into my book, you go through 2016, right? President Trump wins the election, and then you have the Washington Post, the AP, all the sources you just cited basically covering for 2 years, hyperventilating that he colluded with Russia and it was an illegitimate election, right? So again, one thing I learned in my life is you have to find your own truths. You have to look at the details and the facts yourself. And I think that that's why I thought it was very important to write this book, right? The Trump administration had, I think, some incredible successes. When you think about historic trade deals, historic peace deals, unemployment was at a low, inflation was low, wages were rising in America, we were very strong, we had a peaceful world. And those things didn't happen by accident. But again, you constantly had a lot of those same media sources you cite making accusations about the administration that turned out not to be true.
Got it. Republicans, some right-wing Republicans continuing to challenge the result, you decided that the best place for you to be was in the Middle East with the Abraham Accords. Tell us about that.
So the Abraham Accords was the biggest peace deal in the Middle East, maybe in the last 50 years. And what happened there was we got Israel and the Arab countries to start working together to change the Arab-Israeli conflict, which I go through the history of it in the book. I try to do it short so that it's not, again, I tried not to make this an academic read, but basically what we did is we got Israel and the Arab countries to start working together to break barriers. The conventional thinking in Washington before President Trump came was that you'll never have peace between the Israelis and the Arabs until you make peace with the Palestinians. That's what John Kerry said. That's what all the experts said before me. When I came in, I go through my process about how I explored the different topics. I spent my first year listening to a lot of people who'd worked on the file, who were in the region, leaders there. I take people into those discussions, and I kind of found my own truth, and I thought that maybe the conventional wisdom was wrong. And then for 3 years, we were attacked for doing it the wrong way, not like the experts before me, and ultimately we made that breakthrough, which turned out to be a tremendous relief of tension.
I mean, you brought a lot of people together that otherwise potentially would not. And when people were walking away, you made the phone call, you say in the book, and brought them back to the negotiating table. How comfortable were you being in the presence of the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia?
Very comfortable.
Some people have issues about the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and his involvement in that. Did that play on your mind at all?
That was obviously a significant consideration. I write about it in the book. It was an episode, but there were a lot.
Did you ever bring it up with him?
Yeah, I write about the interactions we had on it. But look, our job was to represent America's interests in the region. And if you look at the biggest issue we had in 2016, ISIS had a caliphate the size of Ohio. They were beheading journalists. They were killing Christians. And I write about the debates that we had in the White House about going to Saudi Arabia initially because people thought that they wouldn't change their ways. There was a lot of tolerance or even encouragement of Islamic extremism and some of the clerics who were going into the churches, radicalizing the youth, and the work that the Crown Prince and his father, obviously King Salman, have done to clean out the mosques, try to get rid of some of these bad elements and to fight against Islamic extremism have dramatically shifted the world and have made us all a lot safer.
And you have a good relationship, rather, I should say, still with Mohammed bin Salman, and you set up Affinity Partners, receiving $2 billion, I think, from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. The fund's top advisors described it as unsatisfactory in all aspects. Was it your personal relationship with bin Salman that actually got that deal over the line?
Ultimately, they made a decision to invest. And again, I was very pleased that they were allowing us to invest in Israeli companies to further the work that we made in the Middle East. But again, what I believed, and I was not making secrets of this when I was in government, is that business can be a great force to bring people together, right? And then, with the Abraham Accords, which we got done in the last 6 months of the administration, we finally opened up the channels. And I write about how we got phone calls between the countries. We had to establish banking relationships between the countries. People couldn't travel, flights. We wanted Muslims to be able to go to Israel and visit the mosque. And so the more you can create business interaction between Israelis and Arabs, I believe what that does is it creates a constituency for peace in the region, whereas previously there was blockage. And so the fact that they were willing to support that endeavor by investing in this business is something I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah. To that end, do you think MBS could expect support from any future Trump administration?
I think it will always be based on the policies. I think the media always tries to...
Is that a yes, perhaps?
No, I think it's going to be policy by policy considered. The media always tries to say you're in one camp or another, and what I try to show in the book is that we were incredibly nuanced in the policies.
We're not always the bad guys,
No, again, sometimes you deserve it and sometimes maybe not. But what I find is that if you go through the Trump administration, and again, I think that you'll see there was a lot of very rational policies that were pursued. And I think that gets lost sometimes in the hyperventilation or the or the sensationalism of the media. And so, again, like, it's not an accident that the biggest trade deals got done. We had peace deals. We had a great economy. There were no wars in 4 years, no new wars. And you know, again, even when the pandemic came, the vaccine was developed in 10 months, which none of the experts thought could happen. We got the bureaucrats out of the way. We brought in the private sector and the military. And the Lancet said that that saved over 20 million lives. So what I would just say is that, again, I wrote this book because, number one, is I want to encourage people from the private sector to go into Washington, to go into politics. I think that's very important. We shouldn't have the career political class. But I also think that people who want to know what was really happening inside a very consequential time where so much got done should read the book.
6th of January, recollection of the events that day.
So I was on a plane back that day. Again, I think that nobody in the White House thought there would be violence as far as I was aware. And obviously what happened was terrible, seeing people storm. I got back. I obviously, you know, ended up getting to the White House after a statement had put out, and then after that we worked continuously to try to make sure there was a peaceful transfer of power.
Okay, so talk me through events on the day.
Very simple. I testified to the Jan 6 committee voluntarily when they called, landed in a plane. Secret Service told me to go to the home instead of to the office, which I was happy to do. I'd worked for about 72 hours straight, you know, getting this deal done that I was just telling you about. Get home, about jump to a shower, get a call from Kevin McCarthy saying, we got a real problem here at the Capitol. Anything you can do to help would be appreciated. So obviously put a suit on, run to the White House. At that point, a statement had been out. You know, there was nothing more that seemed that could be done. So we put our focus on the next day. How do we make sure messaging gets tighter? And how do we make sure we're doing everything? And in the month leading up to that, I've been working with Jake Sullivan on transitioning all the Middle East files. He was up to speed on the negotiations.
Let's stay with the 6th of January, though, if I may. What did you say to the president?
I saw him after it was done. So.
Okay, so you didn't see him at all that day?
I saw him after it was done. He'd gone up.
Okay. Apparently he said, and perhaps you can clarify this for me, he was very agitated and he said that he wanted to lead his people, and a former White House aide testified that he tried to grab the steering wheel of a car in order to go up to the Capitol. Is that what happened?
Like I said, I wasn't there, but I think that testimony's been heavily refuted by the Secret Service agents.
I just wondered, because you were there, didn't know you were there.
But again, I think what I would say is, again, the media spends all of its time on sensationalism, and you have an account of somebody. And I'm trying to tell you, there was that account has been, you know, heavily disputed by the Secret Service agents, but you still want to bring up that account instead of going through.
I'm asking you for clarification, whether you were there. You weren't there.
I wasn't there that day.
Okay. How concerned were you, given that you were such a high-profile member of the team? How concerned were you about the safety of Vice President Pence?
Like I said, at the time, I wasn't aware of the details of what was going on, but I was concerned for the safety of everybody, obviously.
Okay. It's just, again, I actually was also not working at the time, but apparently there was some suggestions that at some point his life was in danger. That's not something that you were aware of?
Look, I think the Secret Service does a tremendous job. I have a lot of confidence. They, protected him, they protected the president, they protected our family and a lot of our officials for many years. I don't know how close or how not close it came that day. But like I said, ultimately they restored peace there. I'll tell you, over 5 years, there was over 600 Trump rallies. We never had any violence, never had any problems. And again, it was unfortunate what happened that day. But again, I don't think, the media again, we've had an interview now for 20 minutes. You spend 5 minutes talking about that one day, but you don't want to talk about the days where we're getting historic trade deals that are bringing 500,000 jobs back to the country. You don't want to talk about, no, I'm just saying, you haven't asked me about a vaccine that saved 20 million lives. You haven't asked, you asked briefly about peace deals. You haven't, again, so my only thing is, like, the media is obsessed with this one day.
I was actually about to move on to other matters. I wanted to talk to you about your personal life, actually, if I may.
Perfect.
Because people are very interested in your life with Ivanka. And in the book, you talk about how your marriage almost didn't happen. Tell my viewers why that was.
So we met each other in New York. I go through this in pretty good detail. And again, Ivanka and I are both fairly private people in terms of our life together. I always say that if I wasn't so attracted to her, she'd just be my best friend. And we feel very blessed to have each other, and the great life we have with our children. And again, we had different concerns. We were both coming up in New York at the time. We were in different businesses, but but we had concerns about religion, some concerns about how we wanted to live our lives, but ultimately our love was very strong, and we found ways to work through a lot of those issues, which I think, again, a lot of people, split. I don't know if, I hope our marriage will make it forever. It's a very strong marriage, but I think working through a lot of those issues early gave us a really strong foundation to build our relationship on.
And it was Billy Joel who got you back together with your Uptown Girl, is that right?
He was there that weekend, but it was really, we were there together. Wendy Murdoch did a great job of getting us in a situation where we were together, and I think when we were...
All on a boat in the south of France.
Yes.
Neither of you expected the other one to be there?
No, we were both kind of duped into being there by a very well-intended matchmaker.
Okay, well, they were obviously very successful. You went to see President Trump, your future father-in-law, to tell him that you wanted to propose, and he said yes, but by the time you went to propose, he'd already told him?
I didn't find that out till later. So I go through the proposal in the book, and actually I took my wife to a Broadway show that night. And Broadway shows always start on time like clockwork. For whatever reason, that one was delayed. My brother was in my apartment on Astor Place, with candles and roses, and I was just nervous that the whole place would burn down. And so we got there. I was very, very nervous, but luckily she said yes, and it's been an amazing journey together ever since.
Yeah. You didn't tell him that you had thyroid cancer, did you? Why not?
I didn't. I ultimately did tell him, but I didn't want to burden him. He had so many things on his mind. Again, it's hard to imagine what it's like being the leader of the free world. You see the onslaught of all the investigations, the false media attacks, and then you have all the responsibilities, right? So again, President Trump carried the responsibility of trying to get his promises completed, managing the economy, managing the world. Again, he was making peace deals. We had a roaring economy, but there's just a lot on your shoulders. And so it was my problem. The doctors felt I had a good chance to deal with it effectively. So I set it up. I tried to duck out at a time, but I write a funny scene in the book where before I'm about to disappear for a couple days to get the surgery done, I get called to the Oval Office. He closed the door, which he never did. He was always a very open president. And he says, are you nervous about the surgery? And I said, well, how do you know about that? And he says, well, I'm the president. I know everything. So I later found out, I think one of the White House docs had told him. And he says, don't worry about it. We got your back here. Take a couple days off from work, and whatever you need from us, we got you. So he was very, very sweet about it. And but I just didn't want to burden him with it.
And have you been poorly again recently? You've had further surgery?
Yes, I recently went for a checkup. They found something that required another surgery. I went and did it, and thankfully that was successful as well. That's so I'm told.
So how are you now? How do you feel?
I feel good. Yeah, thank God. Yeah, again, medicine today is incredible, and I just feel very blessed that there's amazing doctors who do the great work that they do.
Yeah. Can I ask you about, obviously, we've talked about your faith a little bit there. I wonder, it's a big deal in the UK. I know it's a big deal here as well, and the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade and its implications for the abortion law. How does that sit with your faith?
So I believe I'm pro-life, and so I think it was a properly decided decision, and I think that the different states will hopefully come, and I hope that in the country, again, if there's a robust debate about it, people could get angry and try to scream at each other, or if there's a legislative compromise that should be reached, then I think the legislators should do what they should have been doing for the last 50 years, not relying on a court decision, and come up with a position that hopefully is representative of what the American population wants.
Okay, I want to move on to 2024, but can I just do some quick fire questions?
Yeah, sure.
How do you relax?
I love working. Again, I always feel like work is it's like puzzles, right? So I don't mind working nonstop. And then, now that I moved to Miami for 4 years, I wasn't able to spend time with my kids, but I've been developing different hobbies that I'm able to do with them. So like I started making them breakfast every morning, which I love.
What do they like?
Pancakes, I'm very
Obviously.
good at, and waffles.
Okay.
I've done very well.
What's the technique?
The technique is we have like a high protein batter. You try to make sure you whip it up pretty good, but getting it just right. And I think the secret ingredient, well, as long as you get chocolate chips in it, kind of forgives any cooking sins. So it's good. And then also taking the kids out boating. I've been learning how to do that, and fishing, and a lot of the different outdoor sports that you can do in Miami that you don't do in New York. So it's been a lot of fun.
Your children, Arabella, Joseph, and Theodore, did they know that Grandad was the leader of the free world?
They knew he was president, but they knew that he was granddad, and they knew that he had a big supply of chocolates. So anytime they showed up at the office, they knew they could run in there, they'd get a kiss and a bag of Hershey Kisses.
Oh, fantastic. Arabella recited poetry in Mandarin to Chinese President Xi, didn't she, at Mar-a-Lago? I want to talk about Mar-a-Lago quickly, if I may. Peace shattered there, very tranquil place for the family, peace shattered by an FBI raid. Why did the president take home top secret documents?
You have to ask him that question, but what I will say is if you look at my book, you'll see that he was under constant attack from the minute he came down the escalator. And so you go through the Russia investigation, they accused him of they said he was treason, and they accused him of things, and they leaked to the press these sensational things, and nothing ended up being true. They impeached him.
But he took top secret documents home, potentially risking the security of the United States.
Yeah, I think that it's something that, again, this seems like it's an issue of paperwork that should have been able to be worked out between DOJ and him. I don't know what he took or what he didn't take, but I think right now we're relying on leaks to the media, which is the same thing.
We've seen the photograph, haven't we, where it says top secret?
Yeah, like I said, I've seen a lot of allegations made by the media over my 4 years that turned out not to be true. So I think that this whole thing is actually elevated.
Okay, well, let me ask it a different way then. If they were top secret documents, was it the wrong thing to do?
Like I said, I don't think we should answer hypotheticals. Let's wait till we know the facts, and then we'll see what the right way to go is. I don't know what was taken, why it was taken, and what's been recovered, and what the ramification of that's going to be.
So the fact that we've seen photographs that say top secret document, we should wait and see whether or not they were, even though we're being told by the FBI that they were.
Yeah, like I said, I go into my book the accusations that were made of Trump.
No, if you could answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he was the President of the United States. He had the highest clearance in the world. So I don't know if this may be a paperwork issue. This may be, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't been involved in the details of it.
Okay, talk to me about 2024. Would you like to, when might he decide whether he's going to run or not?
Nobody can speak for him.
Have you spoken to him about it?
He's asked me about it. I said, it's tricky.
What did he ask you?
I'd rather not go into that. But basically, I know that he's obviously thinking about it. He hates seeing what's happening in the country. He had the economy running so well. He filled the hole economically that was caused by COVID. He got us out of it with the vaccine. And again, we had peace in Europe, peace in the world. China was on their back foot. And now you have a war with, in Ukraine with Russia. Never would happen again. I was just seeing online, the clip was playing of Trump basically at the UN saying that Germany shouldn't be relying on Russia for their natural gas. That causes a big vulnerability, and the Russian diplomats were laughing at him, and the media was laughing at him.
Big issue in the UK and Europe, absolutely. But when will he decide? When will he have to decide? We're heading towards the midterms, aren't we? So he's going to have to decide soon.
When he's ready. Like I said,
he's not ruling it out, though, is he?
I'm sorry?
He's not ruling it out.
Like I said, with Trump, it's hard to rule anything out. So he's a very flexible thinker.
Yeah. Would you like to be part of a Trump administration? The answer is yes, isn't it?
No, the answer
Really?
is that right now my mind is really enjoying the private sector. I think that, again, I don't believe that people should be career political people. I think that it's an amazing honor to be able to go and serve your country.
I mean, if he rang up and said, you know what, Jared, I'm going to run again and I'd like you to be part of my administration, you couldn't say no to him.
Yeah, I think the difference between next time potentially and last time is now he has so many qualified people who are around, who were in the administration.
Not family though, are they?
Yeah, but it's but there's a lot of great people now, and so my hope would be that that with some of those great people, they'll be able to play roles, and I'll be able to support them in any way possible.
He's definitely going to run, isn't he?
Like I said, with him, you never know. So it's he keeps it interesting all the time.
Jared Kushner, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.